to the Open Treasury podcast, your go-to source for the latest news and analysis in corporate cash and treasury management. This show is brought to you by CTMfile.com and the Treasury News Network, where Treasury professionals learn and share the information that matters most.
Hello and a warm welcome to the Open Treasury podcast from CTMfile. I am Pushpendra Mehta, Executive Writer for CTMfile. My guest for today is Craig Jeffery, Managing Partner at Strategic Treasurer. Jack Lodge is expected to rejoin the podcast next week. Welcome back to the Open Treasury podcast, Craig.
Thank you, Push. It's good to talk on these topics again.
Wonderful. Let us begin our weekly review of the latest Treasury news and developments that are worth looking into a bit more fully. The first news story that warrants a discussion is about Japan's largest bank, Mitsubishi UFJ Financial Group, launching a proprietary stablecoin platform. What are the fundamentals of this article, Greg?
Yeah, I think it's a fairly short article, but has a lot of good information in it. MUFG announced this proprietary stablecoin called, I think it's pronounced Progmat coin. And this is a blockchain-based system for issuing and managing these coins. And this is, as a stablecoin, it has a 1-to-1 ratio to the Japanese yen. So as a yen-based stablecoin, I find that interesting just in terms of one of the major economic powers of the world, one of the major banks of the world is doing this. The other aspect of this, too, is that there's a significant focus on cross-chain interoperability. And so the article goes on to describe, a wide range of digital assets would be included in this. So this started, I guess, back in 2019 for security tokens. The reason for bubbling this up to the top is that this approach, the Digital Asset Co-Creation Consortium, which is quite a mouthful, their goal is to expand the reach beyond just security tokens. And this would include things like stablecoin, like we're talking about now, NFTs or non-fungible tokens and crypto assets. This is quite a big thing for a large bank to do. And this is different, not to be confused with the digital currency Japanese yen. This is a combination of about 70 companies, including Sumitomo, MUFG, Mizuho, with the goal of launching a yen-based digital currency in 2022. So this is in addition to that. So they've seen enough demand or potential to launch their own stablecoin with this broad-based reach. That's what's interesting about that to me.
The next story is about embedded finance, which is considered as the next big thing in the world of finance. Since I wrote this article, I am humbled and glad you picked this as one to review. What, according to you, Craig, is embedded finance? And is this just a consumer play, or are corporate banking clients going to be involved here too?
I think there's a definition in the article, but embedded finance is putting different pieces together so it's seamless to the user. On the consumer side, we might think of these rideshare technologies where there's a map that's included. It might be run from Google or some other mapping system. There's a payment engine, which is called up by APIs, but it's embedded in the app. And then there's information that's used, by the consumer about their rides and history. And so all of these things work together. And so it's you could think of it as there's a bunch of APIs that pull these things together, but the idea is that all of these components operate together. And so it is, the example I just gave is a consumer, example of embedded finance, but it doesn't stop there. There's, the use of APIs allows this interoperability across platforms. So it could be, using FX trading into a treasury tech platform that might be 2 different systems or 3 or 4 different systems. This ability to interoperate is really a significant catalyst for additional development.
The third newsworthy piece is that cloud payment specialist Volante Technologies and trade finance provider FIMBank have announced that they will extend their relationship. Is this a network or partnership story, payments or technology story?
It's probably all of those. From a network and partnership story, it certainly is that. I mean, these two players have been working together. This extends the relationship. So two entities leveraging what they do best so that they can both develop faster. That's certainly the case. And because it deals with payments, that's certainly an element as well. And then this idea of the platform as a service or using and leveraging cloud native technology. In 2022, that's a pretty significant story. That may not be a significant story in 2024, but it is today. And so this extended relationship between FIMBank and Volante, they're adding more payment rails, into this cloud native payment processing platform that they have. This idea of, we started with inbound and outbound SEPA payments. But this holds a lot of promise. And, I would quote from Gareth Lodge, who's with Celent. He said, banks and financial institutions face stiff competition for corporate business on all fronts. Larger global banks, smaller challengers, fintechs, and big techs. I think you get the idea. And he says the key to rising above the competition is rapid payments modernization. That may not be all of it, but that's certainly part of it. And this rapid technology modernization is a key part. And I think he goes on to say that the means more than ever, that means adopting cloud native as a service platforms for payment processing. This is really the case for much of transaction management and much of the technology development. This cloud native as a service or cloud native technology is significant. So we see this, it's another element of tech partnerships, the leveraging of networks and leveraging of tech. And that this story has a lot of those key elements to a good movie.
The fourth topic of discussion, I must confess, did catch me by surprise. Russia has announced that it intends to regulate cryptocurrencies rather than outlaw them. This change from outlawing to regulating is seen as a major concession. What is your take on that?
I thought Russia was too busy, preoccupied, seeking to invade other countries. But this idea that they have made a shift of, hey, this is no longer allowed, to we're going to just tax it heavily. That's a fairly significant shift. It wasn't too long. I'll read a quote from the article or a section from the article. It says, Russia's altered stance comes only days after India took a step towards legalizing cryptocurrencies by proposing a 30% tax on digital asset transfers, which, although hefty, was nonetheless seen as a major concession. So you see, two of the BRIC countries making this type of adjustment. And so, the idea of, hey, maybe we can't outlaw it as much. Maybe we can make money on this and tax it is interesting. And I think, when you look back just what the Bank of Russia did, they were very anti-crypto. Even as recently as a month ago, they said that this was cryptocurrencies were a threat to their financial stability. It was rife with fraud. The regulator suggested banning cryptocurrency trading and mining in Russia and really pushed their central bank digital currency, the digital ruble. So this is being developed by the Bank of Russia. And this is significant. It might signify that they don't think they can stop it, but the best play is to regulate it and make some money off of it. So, the ongoing story of digital currencies, central bank digital currencies, and how regulators are handling this.
Finally, what is your choice for the biggest story of the past week and why?
So not to ingratiate myself to you, Push, but I'm going to pick the embedded finance story. The other ones are interesting, the couple crypto stories, cloud tech, but I had picked a tech one before. I think this idea of ongoing tech in terms of embedded or interoperability is significant. I think it's worth a read, but it's also worth looking at what's the expected impact on the economy overall. And to quote, Oracle had an estimate that embedded finance will be worth over $7 trillion in the next 10 years, twice the combined value of the world's top 30 banks today. Now, we can look at 10 years from now. That's a pretty long time. The economy will grow, but the global economy will grow. Maybe the global economy will be 150 to 200 trillion by that time. But still, that's a significant portion at that time. And it's, 7 trillion is real money, whether it's today or in 10 years. So I think the size and magnitude and the expectation there has people's attention. And we've seen it. We've seen it play. They come together in small pieces. Not everything's a brand new creation on its own. It's people putting other things together in ways that perhaps we hadn't seen before. And so we see this on the consumer side. We see this happening more and more on the corporate side at banks. this ability to streamline financial services by these expert components, doing it in an embedded fashion is changing business, and it's very significant. Whether it's embedding payments, lending, smart contracts, all of these items are already starting to reshape what goes on. And as we look and make a projection and we see what others are projecting, this is probably the biggest story for transformation over time for this week.
Thank you. A nod of gratitude to our CTM audience for joining us on this edition of Open Treasury. Please subscribe and look in the show notes for the article links.
This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and statements made by Strategic Treasurer LLC on this podcast are not intended as legal, business, consulting, or tax advice. For more information, visit and bookmark strategictreasurer.com.